Because I wrote out the entire thing in my notebook already and it's super long, I won't have time to type it all out, so I'm just going to read the dream and post it on YouTube because it's easier. Part 1. I open my eyes and look around. I'm strapped to a bed, and it seems to be a hospital. I see Coma, which at first sort of calms me. She turns around and smiles. "Good morning, Cry." I cock my head to one side, confused, and then notice that my hands were green and clawed. I shake my head. No, Mako, it's me, Taylor. And Coma just laughs, talking about those weird human things again, huh? Well, we can fix that. And she turns around to a tray for a moment before coming back to my bed with a needle. I clench my fists together, and I feel the claws stab into my palms as I start to beg her to leave me alone. Mako, no, I'm fine, please. But she puts the needle into an IV tube and injects it. As the drug slips into my bloodstream, I get drowsy, but I try to fight it, opening my eyes a few more times to see Coma watching me, like she was using me as some sort of experiment. The last time I open my eyes before I close them again and fade out, I see a strange cloaked figure standing behind Coma. Part 2. I open my eyes again, but this time I'm human, a little girl. I look out the window and see old brick buildings before looking around and realizing that I was in an apartment. I look into the other room and see a girl. She was not my mother, but I remember calling her Matka under my breath and getting excited to see her. But then suddenly the door busts open and I see my biological father. He's screaming at the girl, and she seems calm at first, but I'm scared, so I hide in a closet. All of a sudden, I hear Johnny scream, "I can't believe you, Sylvia," and I hear Alice's voice saying, "I did what was best for both of us. We were toxic for one another, and you know." But she gets cut off by the pop of a gun before Johnny comes into my bedroom and finds me in the closet. He raises the gun and says, "I'm doing what's best for you," before pulling the trigger. I hear a pop, and everything goes black. Part 3. I awake this time in a pile of rubble. Bricks and dusts are everywhere. My hands are green again, but small. I touch my face and feel 4 small gemstones on my forehead. I was Zitka this time. I stand up, pushing bricks off of me. I was really sore. I look around and realize that everything around me was destroyed, save for one building. I walk up to the building and slowly open the door, cautiously peeking in. I see Key standing at a counter doing something, but I can't tell what it is. I see her gun on her holster and get afraid, but my stomach growls and I take the chance of going inside and walking up to her, tugging on her pants to get her attention. She looks down, sees me, smiles, and picks me up, reaching into a cabinet and taking a cookie from a jar and handing it to me. I stare at it for a moment and hand it back, not really feeling right to take it. Key gives me a strange look and hands me over to someone else. I freak out a little until I look up and realize that it's Zor. He smiles at me and takes me outside. "I want you to see something, little one," he said. "Look at this planet. What do you see?" I look at Zor and then I look out at the rubble. "Broken stuff. Dead people." He nods. "Okay." He turns around so that I see the one intact building, Key standing in the doorway. He walks a bit closer to it, so the only thing I see is the building itself. "And now?" A house," I say, confused. He backs up so the view was of the house and the surrounding area. "Do you want to know what I see?" he says. I look at him. "What do you see?" I say, curious. "I see that in a world that seems destroyed and hopeless, you can always find a bit of oasis." He walks back to the house and hands me the key. "Just because it seems like there's no one around who cares, it doesn't mean you're alone. It just means you haven't reached out to the right people yet." I look up at Key and she nods, so I hug her. I feel safe in her arms as my eyes close. Part 4. When I open them again, I see Coma standing in the same spot as before, with the cloaked figure still behind her. I look at my hands and see that my claws have been trimmed. The IV was still in my arm, but I was no longer tied down. "I've done all I can do for you, Cry," Coma smiles. "You're on your own now." She turns around to leave and opens the door. I see Elise in the hallway waiting for her. "Mako? Mako, please don't leave," I whisper, not being able to find strength to say it any louder. But then something changes in me. "Coma!" I yell after her, and the use of her real name catches her attention as she turns around and smiles. "There's just nothing else I can do. You must understand." I sit up, "But there is. You just don't want to." Coma shakes her head and laughs. "Silly girl," she murmurs, before turning around and walking out, closing the door behind her. The hooded figure walks over to me and starts removing the IV from my arm. "Who are you? Why are you dressed like that?" I demand. The figure says nothing, so I continue. "Are you allowed to be in here? Are you supposed to be taking that out of me? What are you doing here?" The cloaked male raises a finger. "Shh," he says, pulling back his hood. It was Zor again. I gasp a bit because I hadn't been expecting it to be him for some reason. "You? What are you doing here?" "Helping you." But why?" Because I know you're not a lost cause like so many others think. You just haven't met the right person to guide you along. I close my eyes. Maybe not, but I have met a lot of people who have changed me. Flashes of different faces appeared in my mind, list of names, and then I opened my eyes and saw Zor. From each of them I had learned something new about myself, and from some of them I had learned more than others, this is true, but I was equally grateful and indebted to each of them nonetheless. I continued my words to Zor. I may not consider them all to have been a positive thing in my life, but I do consider them all to being milestones in my path to recovery. He looked at me and smiled. Yeah? Do you consider me one of those milestones? I look at him and suddenly I feel an odd sense of pride in myself. I consider you my final milestone. How is that? He chuckled. Because all the other miles were what led me to the right person to guide me along the rest of the way. I smile and everything fades out to black. Part 5. It's me, finally. I'm in my bedroom, but I'm living alone. I walk over to a desk and open the lid of my laptop, trying to figure out why it was ringing an alarm. It was a Skype call. I answer it, and it splits into 3 parts. On one screen was Megan, on another was Alice and Mako, and on the last was Ben. Zitka, Alice says excitedly, how are you doing? You finally made it to Poland? I'm very proud of you, Mako smiled, and Megan nodded in agreement. She's made a lot of improvements. I blush and laugh, confused. What are you guys calling for, I say, raising my arms. Ben laughs. Did you forget your birthday again? I glance at the calendar. The date was August 10th, 2021. It was the first time I had heard from Alice and Mako since I was 17. Alice smiled. Happy 23rd birthday, she said, and then something in Polish that I couldn't quite understand, remembering it now, but I must have understood it in my dream because a tear had rolled down from my eye. I glanced at Ben and he smiled. Consider it a gift. I told him about how much you've changed. Megan smiled. We're all very proud of you, Tay-Tay. I close my eyes, crying, and turn away, and when I open them again, I'm awake. So, that's my weird dream. It was easier to document it by reading it out of the notebook than it was to type it, because typing is consuming. Woo! This is 7 minutes long already. I have a couple conclusions as far as certain things that I've noticed. But I think I will type my conclusions about what it all is supposed to mean. I feel like each part is supposed to mean something slightly different, but it all has one theme. So hopefully I'm going to keep looking into it. It's been a reoccurring dream, so I'm going to keep looking into it and see if I can figure out what it means.